Welcome back to the Ink Sink. I am Annie.
I'm Kaylee.
And this is the publishing podcast for the rest of us. We are here talking about books.
Yeah, we are.
We are super book nerd fans, and we're going to tell you about it.
Yeah.
Whether you want to hear about it or not.
You must want to, because you're listening still, so.
Maybe. I don't know how people find this podcast, if there's like an algorithm somewhere out there that's like, oh, you like X, you must like these weirdos.
Right? I can't imagine. But also, I mean, algorithms, how do they work?
Honestly. It's based on like what someone else liked. So maybe if one person likes us and then comes from something else, then all the other people that were at that other thing also get us. Anyway, we're glad you're here. However you made it, we're happy to have you.
Yes, we are. We genuinely are. Thank you so much. We hope you enjoyed this episode.
Yeah, you're about to be radicalized into our library army to fight the book bans.
That's right.
We have an entire section today about that, and I was just getting increasingly angry as I was organizing it.
I mean, it's okay. It's just, again, I do also want to take a very brief moment because we are going to speak about book bans. We are going to get angry, probably. But I do want to take another moment because, like, the media loves to sensationalize things.
Yes.
But, like, even then, the majority of people, like, when we talk to them directly, we poll people in these areas where book bans are happening, people oppose them. It is the vocal minority right now that is the issue. And it's just people that, I don't know, have too much time on their hands and just hate and want to take their misery out on everyone else.
Specifically, I think something like 80% of Americans are against the current book banning situation happening. So I think that's definitely correct. It's a vocal minority that's trying to ban.
Support your local libraries, as always. Write in, and even if you don't want to, like, really take a lot of time, just be like, hey, I oppose book bans, I like books and free access to information, and the libraries are great. That would be helpful. Just a couple sentences, if you can, to your local representatives in your state.
Really, absolutely. We're just starting off with... We usually start off with, like, banter or something, but today we're like... activism.
Just
enemies of the state.
That's right. Oh, God.
It's like, have you seen what's his name, the internet's boyfriend, the redhead who plays D&D?
Brennan Mulligan.
Brennan Mulligan, when he was doing that, like, activist goblin guy. He's just like, remember, kids, police are just the arm of the state and they don't care about you. They only care about the state's power. Now let's burn it down.
I know, I missed that, but I've got to look it up.
It's like a bunch of TikTokers have been using the audio of just being like, I don't know what you kids are up to, but just remember, police are arms of the state.
Thanks, Brennan.
I think we should take all of our advice for civic engagement from viral clips on TikTok of a D&D game of a guy playing a goblin.
All of that sounds correct and appropriate.
Side note, I watched the new D&D movie.
Isn't it so good?
I didn't watch all of it, but I did like it. It was very sweet.
Why didn't you watch all of it?
Because I was working and they just had it on while I was working.
That's fair.
And it was mean, honestly, because I wanted to watch it.
I appreciate that for you.
I do love this renaissance of Michelle Rodriguez because she was so sidelined for so many years just because she just wanted to play that one character of, like, the one in Aliens, what's her name, Vasquez in Aliens, where she just, like, wakes up from cryo sleep and starts doing pull-ups. And then, that's Michelle
I'm
Rodriguez.
Fine with it,
yeah. Like, she's fantastic, but for a long time it felt like Hollywood didn't quite know what to do with her, and now they fucking do, and I am so here for it. I want every they brought her back for a recent Resident Evil movie, like number 5 or so, and then they killed her again, but she was still a fucking badass in the first one. Remember the first Resident Evil? That was a great movie.
Hell yeah.
They've been trying to recapture that, and
they always are, because they're like, well, everybody really liked these things, so let's just immediately do away with them and try other things. Yes. That's always how Hollywood does it, and
it was
terrible.
So weird. I love that story, though. I would love a new Resident Evil based on the story from the first movie, because that's just such a cool Alice in Wonderland, but creepy story. Anyway, what's going on with you, Kaylee? How you doing?
I'm doing okay. I am unpacking.
Yeah, you just moved. How's the new house?
The house is great. So we have, it's funny. So we have a humidifier running upstairs and the dehumidifier running in the basement.
Awesome.
Even with it constantly running, we're at about 55 humidity index of whatever it measures.
Okay.
constantly.
I don't have any context for that.
I have none.
I also don't know anything about weather, but does this not create like a cloud in the middle floor?
I'm really actually hoping to be struck by lightning in my house and get weather powers like storm.
Isn't that how that works?
I'm hoping.
It's like a temperature plus water.
Hope.
You just get a fog. You just have a morning fog in your kitchen.
In the middle of the house? No, sadly not yet, but someday maybe.
Good. I want to see that. Oh, cheers. Sorry, I was just putting my can down in case. Cheers.
But yeah, so that's fun. I just came back from a bachelorette trip.
That's right.
We did Disney, which was great.
In California, Disneyland.
Yes, we did Disneyland. And also, I spent too much money, of course I did, but like I found my wedding rehearsal dinner dress, which is super cute.
That's the Disney guarantee.
Yeah, that's right. It was really cute.
Good. I'm glad.
Yeah. So we had a great time. My friend had a great time. We did everything she wanted to do. It was a lot of fun. What about you, Annie? How you doing?
Oh, I'm still in school.
Suffering.
I'm actually a little bit hungover as we're recording this. My cohort, some other people from my class are graduating with their master's degrees today as we're recording this. So I was out with them last night because I'm not going to the ceremony and I'm not walking. I'm going to do something a little bit different for myself, but I wanted to make sure that I was there for them last night, and I was there for them a little bit too hard, honestly. We had to push back recording because I was hungover and sleepy. It's all self-inflicted, honestly. I'm just going to chug this monster and we're going to get through it. I haven't gotten any feedback recently from any of our people commenting on our stuff, so if you all want to let us know how you feel about any of our episodes.
Sure, yeah, we'd love to hear from you. I would love to argue with you on any of Annie's social media.
Yes, please comment on my social media, and then Kaylee will get back to you.
Yep.
Did you watch that? There's like a Netflix documentary on this guy. He's a hacker, and he was in jail. And he had to he wanted to bring a new case before the court, but because he was a hacker and in jail, he couldn't have access to a computer. So he and his lawyer worked out this system where his lawyer would go and type something into Google, screenshot the Google search page, print that out, bring it to the guy in jail, have the guy either say, click on one of these or go to the next page. Then he would go back to the computer and this was over years.
Oh my God.
I know. That's insanity.
That's bonkers.
Anyway, so Kaylee wants to do that for you all.
Aggressively. That sounds delightful.
You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or Pinterest. We're on Pinterest just because I like it. So, if you don't like it, you don't have to. But I personally am on probably almost all social medias just because I'm terminally online, and you can argue with me about anything in any of our episodes on any of those platforms. But you can see where we are officially as the podcast on our Linktree, which you can find wherever you found this podcast. Kaylee, let's jump into the news.
Absolutely.
Do you want to intro this article about authors supporting each other through the hard times?
Oh my gosh. So this was sad but also funny, because one of the things that I really enjoyed about this was just it's not new, it's just more visible now. So what we are talking around right now is authors supporting authors through empty book signings, basically. Just events.
Just commiserating.
Promotional events. Yeah, exactly. Just hey, yeah, you solidarity. Yeah. It happens to the best of us.
Yeah.
And apparently there was discussions from agents that they would go with their authors, and they'd be in malls and just trying to harass people into coming and joining.
Yeah. If you listeners have never been to a book signing, me neither. And also, it's because not a lot of people go to book signings, but authors, when they're scheduled to be there, they'll be there, whether there's someone there or not. Mm-hmm. And so that leads to a lot of authors just sitting
at a table
in either an empty room or in a Barnes and Noble, and just people walking up to them being hey, I need help finding a book. And then being well, you can have one of mine. So sad.
I'd be happy to sign this one for you.
Margaret Atwood, who wrote The Handmaid's Tale, among other books, had a funny story about how at one of her early book signings, yes, someone walked up to her to ask where the Scotch tape was, and that was the only person who walked up to her at that book signing.
So sad.
It is.
Yeah, so apparently that's it's not a new thing. It's not pandemic did anything. This is just standard stuff. I have actually been to a book signing.
I've never been to one.
So there was a book series that me and Mom actually both read. Because it was like a perfect like kind of intersection between like saucy romance and action adventure. So I was like, oh yeah, and I'll like skim the parts I don't care about, you know, for important dialogue, as in all life of my just reading my mother's romance novels, because they were the only things in the
I
house.
have 100% skipped entire chapters of books just so that I can get to the next dialogue point because I was so uninterested in whatever was happening.
Yep. Well, is this going to come back when she tries to...
Yeah, right. Is this going to be relevant?
Defeat the villain and take back her family's ranch or whatever?
No,
probably
then don't care about
it.
So
anyway, so before it went off the rails, so there was she signed it. It was the but it's like a 20 book series at this point.
Wow.
Like, yeah.
Imagine writing 20 books.
I can't. I genuinely can't.
That's incredible.
Like, it is incredible. I can only assume.
I wonder how many, like, I've written a lot of shit in my life that's been published, but it's almost all been news. And I think if all of that was collected, it would make maybe a book. I can't imagine. And I mean, I don't have any fiction out there. You have fan fiction out there. If it was all collected, do you think it would be a book?
Yeah.
It would be one
Easy.
book? Okay. But not 20.
No. I would probably, with everything that I've got, I'd probably say 3 books.
If you did an author signing for your 3 books, I would come. Would you? And I would have you sign them.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be able to meet your eyes for some of it, but yes, I would.
I'd be like, hey, what is going on here?
I'd be like, you can't ask questions. That wasn't in the contract.
I mean,
it's not what you paid for.
Yeah.
I'll sign it. I didn't say I'd answer questions.
Oh, that's awesome, though. Were there a lot of people there? Was that your experience, or was it that it was like a small thing? Like
No, actually. I mean, I guess, I don't know. We were only there for, say, 20 minutes,
sure.
You know, whatever. It seemed like she was relatively well received.
That's awesome.
It was Borders. To be fair, like, they didn't have a lot of space. It was kind of like the very edge of the store. So maybe it looked busier, which is good, honestly.
Yeah. Nothing draws a crowd like a crowd.
Exactly. So, it was super cool to, like, meet her.
But that's the only book signing you've ever been to.
I'm trying to think. I think I've probably been to another one or two, but, like, that's the one I really remember.
It's so hard, I imagine, because, I mean, as someone who's had to look into book publicity and promotion for class and also for, you know, this podcast, like, marketing is hard. Like, people don't care, about anything.
Yes.
What Kaylee was saying earlier about how this has always been kind of a thing, but it's more open now, is because of social media. We've talked about this on the show before, that, like, social media is we're still learning new effects of social media. And one of these is authors connecting together and posting these kind of sad pictures of just empty rooms where they've been to a signing, and then someone else chiming in, like Neil Gaiman saying, hey, happened, you know, me and Terry Pratchett sat at a desk and talked to 2 people for 6 hours one time. You know, it happens to all of us. And Margaret Atwood always shares the story about how someone just walked up to her looking for Scotch tape early in her
signings.
Yeah. I love
sweet.
Yeah, I love that they're
like,
supporting each other.
Yeah, solidarity. And also just it's not new. And so anybody that is like kind of downhearted about like the lack of response to anything you've done or putting out, like it's not you.
It's not you.
Really.
No.
Like I'm sure your content is wonderful. You just timing and market. You just got to give it time, and then you just got to let the market kind of get to your stuff. So just keep trying.
As John Mulaney says, it is so much easier to not do things.
It is it's accurate. That is so true.
Getting people to do things is kind of a big deal.
It's very difficult to do.
Moving on to something that I don't like talking about, but we're going to. Bookmans. Actually, this is good news. This first story was good news. Penguin Random House and Pen America. Penguin Random House is a publishing company. Pen America is a press freedom organization, and several authors are suing a school district in Florida, saying that the bans that they've gone through for students' books violate their constitutional rights to free speech and protection from discrimination.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to mount a blitz attack and hope nobody responds, and that's genuinely what blitz attacks are. Like, people are just like, well, this is stupid, it'll pass. And then it didn't pass. People are getting bolder and bolder. So now people are actually pushing back and responding. And not like, oh, it's these 2 rando, wildly liberal ladies from Maryland, from the East Coast. It's like people in those communities, it's their local, like, parents are banding together and working with, in this case, Penguin Random House. But other people too, like teachers, you know, everybody's pushing back, and it's not just like one or two places. Like there was a lawsuit brought to like the state of Texas by local parents, which we'll get into in a bit. I think that's in here as well.
Yeah, that's in this section.
But like it's just, thank God, because like it's just so like frustrating, and I think that's the big thing is, as well as one of these articles discusses, I mean, it can hurt authors 100%. We've talked a little bit about that, but like the real damage is people are self-censoring.
Yeah.
Like they're gonna like stay in the closet longer. They're not gonna be their authentic selves. They're hurting themselves, and it doesn't change who they are. You're not changing who these people are. You're just being awful. You're just being a terrible, wormy person. Just go away. Stop. And I like worms, so you're being like a Japanese jumping worm, which is an invasive species and needs to not be in my garden.
Tell him, Kaylee. Hopefully the moles will handle that.
Yeah! Shit, I need to turn my enemies against each other.
Yeah, so for those who haven't been following this, a bunch of conservative groups, and they are, we can say without, you know, generalizing that these are, by and large, conservative groups, are going after books on sexuality, but also books on race, and also books on teens having sex.
Even though teens have sex. Like, you can't.
One of the things that really stood out to me with this one, so in this specific community in Florida, this started with a book specifically about teens having sex. And I kind of want to jump into that because we don't usually get a chance to talk about this with any kind of nuance. But I think that there is a little bit of nuance here. We've talked about what banning depictions of other cultures and sexualities does to education, and we're all on board with that. But there is a discussion to be had here about education and harm reduction. Mm-hmm. You know, people get squicked out thinking that their kids are having sex in general, even straight sex. Like, they just get squicked out and they don't want to think about that. And so they take away these opportunities for education, which automatically take away these opportunities for harm reduction.
Look, even if they're not personally having sex, they know people that are. So it's not like they're unaware that sex is a thing.
Yeah.
What you're doing, and I know this because I graduated in the South, where we did not have all of my sex education happened in the North.
Oh, really?
When we moved. Yeah. I mean, I was only there for like 1 year, but like I asked her, my tiny ass like agricultural school had the highest ratio of pregnant graduates. It doesn't fucking work.
Yeah, harm reduction necessitates that they know the basics, if nothing else.
My biggest frustration with the moves that have been made is that they're calling like things that are talking about authentic experiences of children.
Yeah.
As like pornography when it's not. It's people being pressured into sex and trying to figure out ways around that. And you're taking away the tools for for your actual children to recognize when someone is trying to pressure them into sex and ways for them to respond. Because this person's like, this happened to me. I wish I had done this differently. It was bad.
And to recognize abuse in some cases. Like when abuse happens when you're young, as a child, you don't always understand that it was abuse. Giving someone the language to deal with it is a good like I don't even know how to describe what a good thing it is, and at least to get help, if nothing else. Even if they can't employ some of these harm reduction practices themselves, they can at least get help. They can at least describe what happened to them instead of just saying it was weird or something like that when you don't have the language. Like, you know, it's wrong.
So I agree with you 100%.
Yes. So the suit was just filed in Florida. We won't know the result for the while, but it is the largest suit to be brought against a school district over these moves in the past 3 years.
And much like other suits that are currently happening very publicly in Florida, there is a lot of evidence to support the fact that certain people's groups are being unfairly targeted. Hard numbers, facts.
Yeah, we're going to post that article from Publishers Weekly into the show notes. So you'll be able to see, but like in this one district in Florida, it was just one lady who didn't like a John
one
Green
language
book.
arts teacher.
And she had not even read the book.
She hadn't even read it. Like, can you imagine?
Because it depicted teen sex. One of the reasons that I wanted to make sure that we finish that story before we jumped into the next one is because this one might maybe support the idea that this PRH/pen/author suit could win. There was a win last month. This is also
in Texas, actually.
In Texas, yeah. So this is also from Publishers Weekly. A preliminary injunction in Austin, Texas, caused a stir. A judge said that books removed by those conservative efforts should be returned before the larger trial.
Because it was unconstitutional to remove them.
Yes. So the judge thought it was that the protesters were correct, that it was unconstitutional to remove the books. This is not binding. It's just until the larger trial takes place. We don't know when that larger trial will happen, but it is extremely encouraging, especially because like using legal precedent, like we have a judge's order saying that this is true, which is helpful.
I will say that I want you to consider, so the response, there was a discussion on whether they would close the library rather than return these books to the shelves. And ultimately they decided to not do that. But where do you find the fucking audacity that your community has spoken out and you're like, well, no, fuck you. I hope all your taxpayers move away and you die poor and sad. I'm so frustrated. You absolute...
We get very
walnuts.
We get very passionate about book
I'm trying
fans
to like. I've only got like 5 swears, and I've already used them up this episode.
YouTube doesn't give us any. So.
Oh no. Okay, I'm gonna just give you like random, totally PG words. I just need you to record them, and then you can just sub them in and make it like super. I'll say it like in a really deadpan.
Appropriate ones.
I'm gonna be
like
really...
you absolute wonderful. You fuck person.
Yeah, exactly. We'll make it as deadpan as possible so it's really obvious that you're dubbing over me with me.
Yeah. Perfect.
I'm sorry. It's so insanely stupid. And I hate idiots.
I find it really infuriating as well.
It's absolutely crazy.
And it's widespread. Unfortunately, we're talking about Florida and Texas, but it's widespread. This is from Publishing Perspectives. There's been a 38% jump year over year, a record 2,571 unique titles have been targeted for censorship in the United States in 2022, according to the American Libraries Association. Which is that's bonkers. A shit ton of books. Yeah. Another thing, and because I wanted to make sure that we rounded this out with, if you want to help, if you want to do something, but if you also want to keep educated, Publishers Weekly, I didn't write Publishers Weekly in this. I wrote Penguin Random House. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
I sent Kaylee these news notes and there was a typo. So if you want to follow this,
Publishers Weekly. You got this.
I'm fine. If you want to follow this, Publishers Weekly has a weekly newsletter that it sends out about the state of libraries. And it's just a bunch of updates from local libraries, national libraries, school libraries, talking about, what's going on. And it also contains a lot of stuff about book banning, which again is infuriating. I'm sorry. But it also contains, rays of hope and updates. And if you want to help, keep getting educated. So I'm going to add a link to that also into the show notes. I have one from this past week in our actual notes because I wanted to make sure that Kaylee could also see what we were recommending.
Yep.
And just put it in there and be like, Kaylee, I promise this is good. Don't worry.
Don't worry about it. Don't ask questions. It's fine. I believe you, Annie.
Yeah. Publishers Weekly is free. Some of the links might be going to paywalls, just as a heads up, but you can subscribe for free and follow along for free. And please, please, please support your local libraries.
Always. 100%.
Moving on, our old friend, the Internet Archive.
Oh, boo. They're appealing. So they lost their case, and largely publishers are like, this is a win for publishers and authors. Okay.
So controlled digital lending. Let's just start there, because I think it's important to understand what this fight was actually about.
That's probably a good idea.
So controlled digital lending means that you have a physical book, you make it digital, you scan it in, and then if someone borrows the digital version of that book, you then don't allow anyone to borrow the physical version. So effectively, you have one book that is either available offline or online. And if it's being checked out offline, you can't look at it online. And if it's being checked out online, you can't look at it offline.
So essentially the problem is that much like libraries that are attempting to resolve this in a directly legal challenge in Supreme Courts in every state, you don't get money, the full cost of the book, every time someone checks it out digitally.
So publishers say that this is a violation of their copyright. that they believe that essentially everyone should be yeah, I mean, it's really hard to say that they're saying anything else. They want people to pay more for more books. They want someone to pay full price for every single book that they read, which I like, okay, but also like no, I don't want to do that. Like, I would much rather pick it out from the library. Like, the library bought the book. The library owns the book. I am borrowing it from the library. Like, someone paid for this book. And I'm not we're not encouraging stealing. We don't ever encourage pirating. But also, like, what do you expect people to do? You'd rather they not read your book? Apparently. Anyway. So during the pandemic, the Internet Archive expanded some of that and loosened some of its rules about its one-to-one policy. And so the publishers kind of jumped on that. Interestingly, though, in this case, the emergency bit was never really mentioned, and they are just essentially arguing against controlled digital lending because the publishers feel that it is a violation of their copyright because they own the rights to it. So technically, they control where it goes, and they don't believe that digital ownership is ownership, essentially.
Which is why it just considered that is the message that has been sent, and how many books and media you own.
So the Internet Archive has...
And whether you want to give those publishers your money for that content, rather than just... Like, I keep wanting to lend Annie books that I only have on digital, like, means, and it's really frustrating, and I just need to go, like, buy them from, like, Barnes & Nobles or Books A Million, or if I can get a local bookshop, like, because there's just a few in the city still.
Oh yeah, what's the local bookshop situation in your new place? Or near your new place?
I think I'm gonna just start going through the comic shop because they do. Like, they can order books and stuff, so they've got the contract. If I'm gonna have it ordered to my house anyway, might as well just go through them.
Fair. Totally fair. That's a good idea, Kaylee.
And it gives them money.
Absolutely.
Support your local comic shop.
Anyway, so the Internet Archive lost its case with the publishers. The judge ruled. Yes, they are appealing. But in fairness, both sides have said that whatever the outcome was, they were going to appeal regardless. So we're going to be hearing more about this. Is this going to affect your usage of the Internet Archive? Probably not. At the moment, it's kind of just restricting some controlled digital lending, but the Internet Archive also has other types of digital lending that it does. So if you are a student like me who has used Internet Archive to get your school books, you should still be able to do that, just in a kind of more limited way, which is very annoying. But for now, that's just going to keep going. And a lot of people in the industry have their eyes on this, especially in the library industry. And we don't know how it's going to shake out. My hope is that, of course, some compromise has to be reached where these publishers acknowledge that not everyone is going to pay for every single book that they want to read. And they could, I suppose, but that's not feasible for most people. Like, anyone who is living paycheck to paycheck cannot afford to buy all of their... they can't even afford to buy the movies they've got. Like, this is why streaming is a thing. I'm not sure what they think is going to happen here. My hope is that they kind of come to their senses and come up with a new deal.
Suggest a compromise, or one will continue to work around you.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to have any hands on the reins, then you should get behind the fucking wheel.
Yeah.
Seriously.
It's upsetting.
That was a very mixed metaphor. Steer the horse? I don't know.
Steer the horse with the wheel. I got it.
Yeah. Perfect. I'm glad we're on the same page.
With the car steering wheel.
Exactly.
Yeah. Moving on, one of the largest media cases of the century, probably the media case of the century, was between Fox News and Dominion. Normally I try to keep this podcast to just publishing news, but this was very important to digital media and also all media in general.
It's a media, like... Yeah.
It affects the news, really. So for those of you who weren't following, in 2020, Donald Trump lost the presidential election, and he believed that was incorrect, and that the voting machines that we use in our national election, some of which were made by a company called Dominion, were hacked or fraudulent or fake. There were a couple contradicting theories about what that was. I'm not saying conspiracy theory, but it was a conspiracy theory. There were a couple contradicting conspiracy theories. And many of those theories were talked about on Fox News, both online and on their TV news sections. And Dominion sued Fox for defamation because they believed that the Fox News writers and anchors knew that what they were saying
bullshit was a lie.
And Dominion was pretty sure that in, what is it called, deposition or discovery? In discovery, it would come out that, in fact, it was a lie. And it did.
And they were right.
If you were paying attention, I guess, within the past couple months and saw that, you know, there were a bunch of text messages from Fox anchors coming out saying, oh, yeah, we know this is not real. This is not a thing. Then this is why. It's because they were forced to disclose it because Dominion and their lawyers were
freedom of information
doing their, well, it's, it's a legal case.
It was also a legal case. Yeah. But like you can do information requests.
Oh, yeah. So this matters for defamation cases in general, not just because of the implications of the trial, but because of the implications of how it was settled. So Dominion settled with Fox News. They got quite a lot of money. Dominion is actually a very small company, and it's believed that the reason they settled with Fox News is because they genuinely just couldn't afford to keep the case going, even though they were gonna win, really. Right. I mean, the case hadn't started yet, but based on all of the information that was publicly available, it very much seemed like Dominion was in the right and the Fox News was in the wrong.
And okay, so again, support things that you want to see more of, obviously, but corporations aren't your friends. And they were offered a lot of money.
They were offered a lot of money.
A genuine record-breaking settlement.
Yeah, so this never went to court, which means that we don't actually have any legislation or any... What comes out of a court?
Judgment?
Judgment on what Fox was doing. I'm so sorry, everyone.
You haven't even had your cider yet.
I haven't even started drinking. This is a lot of caffeination and electrolytes that I'm still forgetting words. We actually didn't get a legal judgment from this case because they settled out of court, and a lot of media watchers like myself felt a little bit disappointed about that because a judgment in favor of Dominion would have clearly set out some guidelines for all media companies to say, this is how you should be talking about conspiracy theories. So Fox maintains that it was just covering the news, that Donald Trump was in the news and was still newsworthy, and all they were doing was just talking about what he was saying. But that wasn't what they were doing. They were, in fact, encouraging some of these conspiracy theories, and we have the transcripts from the shows, like that where they said publicly, like, I can't believe Dominion did this, you know? So Fox, it lied, essentially, about what they had done, and then Dominion said that they're also lying about what they were trying to do. But again, we won't get a summary judgment for this one. There is another case in the works from another voting machine manufacturer.
Yeah, the other
I'm so
company.
Sorry.
No, that's fine.
There's another one in the works with a similar claim as Dominion, so we'll see if we get a judgment from that.
Maybe now that, well, yeah, hopefully. So it would be nice. I know that they're hoping for a payout, and I'm sure that's what they're going to stop at, but it would be nice to actually get something, basically a precedent set, because settlements are settlements. Yeah. It's not going to be something that can be used legally as a precedent until it actually goes through the whole process and a judgment is rendered. Right. So.
Yeah, it's kind of annoying.
I get it, lots of money. However.
Yeah, so... As far as, digital media and publishing goes, this has kind of brought to the fore that even opinion journalists need to be held to a standard similar to hard news journalists. And I think that that's something that we may see the effects of for a while. I hope that opinion journalists get their shit together sometimes. Like, as someone who comes from hard news, I am so tired of opinion people just saying, oh, it's my opinion. It's like, yeah, but...
You're presenting it in such a way, and it's on a forum. Fact. Yeah, like it is not,
and
not
it's
cool.
Just not. And now for our favorite news section, celebrating minorities and women in publishing. South Asian translated books are finally getting their due in the UK. This comes to us from Publishing Perspectives. Kaylee, do you want to give us a quick overview?
Sure. So Daniel Hahn, who is a leading translator, he has worked very extensively with Publishing Perspectives International, in general, and with international readers. has actually worked with a translator and instructional professor, Jason Grunebaum. I'm sure I mangled that name.
Sorry, Jason.
Sorry. But so basically there's a program coming together at the University of Chicago. It's one donor right now, but I'm sure they're seeking others. But basically they're like supporting and encouraging like the mandate of translation of South Asian literature. Mm-hmm. And I really appreciate like they're calling it the SALT project.
I know, I love the acronym South Asian Literature in Translation.
It's
so cute.
Perfect. And also because like a lot of minorities and people of color are just, and we've already talked about this, they're especially specifically in academia. This isn't just like in publishing. This is in academia explicitly because it's housed out of the University of Chicago. So they're getting like a direct kind of acknowledgement, and which I think is fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so like I'll read a quote actually for the creation of the project from the joint statement, which was, "With this project, we aim to bring some of the extraordinarily rich literature of the subcontinent to publishing markets where it has thus far been severely underrepresented."
At subcontinent meaning the Indian subcontinent.
Yes.
Which includes like 6 or 7 countries, I want to say. Mm-hmm. So India and the surrounding countries is kind of the way that they say South Asian, just kind of lump all these things together. Go ahead.
Yeah. So considering that India is massive and has...
That subcontinent is massive.
Yeah. Like it's bonkers like how little access that we have to their content, their media. Mm-hmm. So like it's so awesome that we're seeing, you know, more coming. According to that joint statement, less than 1% of all the translated literature published has been from a South Asian language, despite the fact that, again, it's a quarter of the world's population. Like, it's bonkers. Mm-hmm. So it's good for you guys. I'm hoping that you get additional donors so you're not supported solely off of one person and that this program does well.
And now for our favorite section. Kaylee.
Hi, Annie.
What are you reading?
So I actually, since I was traveling and I was in the air for like 3 and 4 hours at a time, I have fully read A Guide to Troubled Birds again, which is very short, to be fair, and very funny. It's like, this is birds and blurbs and then short stories that are in response to...
I didn't know there were short stories. Oh, yeah.
That's exactly. So very cute. like microfiction, basically.
I love
like
it.
Less than a page,
I
usually.
Love that.
Yeah. And it's like, the risk I took was calculated, but man, am I bad with math.
That bird. Yeah, I love that. So you actually recommended this in our last episode.
I sure did.
And I do want to say to all of our friends who are listening, this book is not available on bookshop.org, but you can go directly through the publisher, or you can call your local bookstore and get it.
100%. There's no issues. They'll come. It's really like easy to get if you go.
It seems like a nice little coffee table book. Is that
100%? Yeah.
Okay, good.
Absolutely.
It seems really adorable.
It's again quick read. So after that, I ended up picking back up a T. Kingfisher book, Minor Mage, which I was like, I really want to loan this to Annie because it's so okay. So it's about a child dealing with adult situations, and in this case there's problems in his village, and his older sister is also off being like an adult, and so he's like 12 and he's got 3 spells and an armadillo familiar, and there's a drought, and his mom has just gone off to help his sister, and he's like, oh, now's my time to try to go fix this problem, and he's trying to figure out where to go, what to do. And
I love him already.
Genuinely, like the sweetest, most precious, like he's such a good, not like an unrealistically good kid, he's just a good kid.
T. Kingfisher really just knows how to pull on those heartstrings
so well. So
hard.
And so like the village has just drummed itself up into a hysterical fit, and they basically say, you have to go, and they essentially kick him out to go solve the problem he's already trying to work to solve. But like, you're still dealing with people that you've known and loved all your life, essentially turning into a mob. Like, you know it would get violent if you don't. Yeah.
If you don't do something.
And then just dealing with this situation in this town, in this land where magic and stuff's you've got monsters and magic, and like you're still like, and regular horrific people that are being awful, which people can be, and like you just have all of
everyday tragedies.
Yeah, and like just him on this journey trying to resolve this drought. It's so good.
Did you finish it on the plane?
Oh, yeah. I finished it 100%. Okay. Like, I finished both books easily. Good. And I really want to loan it to you, so now I just have to... And I want to buy a physical copy anyway.
Okay.
So I will buy it, and then I will own it.
I mean, we can keep up this trend of you giving me T. Kingfisher books once a year, and then me taking the full year to read them, because that's what I was reading. I read Sword Heart. I loved it. Speaking of, this is, I mentioned, I think, in a recent episode that I'm not super into YA. I would call this new adult.
Yeah, I would 100% call, like, some of her adult things, because she's actually a children's novelist.
Yeah, she does.
Her T. Kingfisher byline is, her pen name is more adult, but not, like, adult.
Yeah, I would call it new adult. I mean, the characters are both older people, I would say. One's in her late 30s, one's in his early 40s, I would say. Mm-hmm. And they bone. Not even at the end. I mean, I'm sure they're boning at the end, but they're...
they're also boning at the end.
There aren't graphic descriptions, I would say, but they're not... It's not a fade to black either. Yeah. So, yeah. But you're like, oh, heck yes. You're just, like, so excited for them. Anyway, so this book is about this older woman. She's in her late 30s. She's a widow, and her family is trying to steal her money. And I think we've actually talked about this on the show before.
When I was reading it the first time, and then I loaned it to you. Yeah.
And so she has been, like, imprisoned in her own home. She's pissed, but she is, like, has gotten through life by never letting anyone know that she's angry and just babbling until someone leaves her alone. Like, that's her defense mechanism, is just to babble until they're like, please stop, please stop, please stop, please stop. Yeah, that's not my defense mechanism, but I can appreciate that. And that's your defense mechanism, really?
One of them.
Oh my god, you've never defended yourself against me. I guess I've just never seen that. I've never attacked you, thank goodness.
I was super anxious, like, when in high school there were issues, you know, I wasn't like a...
So people saw you as like just a super chatty person, when the truth was that you were just baseline.
I was very quiet until they...
Like a little greyhound just shivering.
They perceived me, and then
they perceived you. Oh, the terror of being known.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. But yeah, okay, that's good to know, because then that's like one of the main reasons that you like jumped into that. I at first was like not into this character. I was just like, oh god, not a talker. I don't like... She talks for paragraphs, guys. Literal paragraphs of just babbling. But it's her defense mechanism, and so you like see what's happening. And it works, right? Because no one... I mean, yeah, she's an older woman, and this is true of society today. Very much devalues older women, to the point where a lot of... There's a fantastic... I don't remember if it was one of our Stranger Than Fiction stories, but I feel like I've talked to you about this before. We did an episode of just like a bunch of stories that were Stranger Than Fiction, but they were true. Was these two ladies who went on a crime spree. They were both in their 40s, and they realized that no one was ever paying attention to them, because no one just saw them as useful for anything. So they were just stealing, because no one was paying attention to them.
I don't think we've talked about this, but I love it.
I don't remember. Now I'm saying it. It sounds too good to be true, so maybe it was fiction. I don't remember, but I feel like it was a true story. Anyway, so... She is an older woman, and this is her defense mechanism, is like she's assuming that people don't pay attention to her, but once they do, she makes them regret it. And so she's been stuck in this. She's been stuck in this attic, a good old attic wife, you know, we love them. And unfortunately, she can't talk her way out of it, because they refuse to talk to her at all. They're just locking her up in here. So she's like, well, fuck, like, what do I do now? And so she's like, okay, desperation. She starts grabbing things, and one of the things she grabs... accidentally, it turns out, is a magic sword, and she's like, what how did you even get here? Like, what is this? And so she draws the sword, and there's a guy who lives basically in the sword and also has a sword, and
he can't wield himself, you guys.
He cannot wield himself, of course. And he's like, I am here to help. And
I'm
she's
usually
like,
only drawn in why are you half naked?
And so he's like, why am I in this attic? What's going on? And she's like, you were a collectible. And he's like, oh, was I, expensive? Or, it was like really cute. So this is their meet cute. And she's like, I'm kind of in peril. And he's like, oh, peril.
Now I know what to do.
Yeah. So he breaks her out of there, and they try and find help. And he's constrained to follow her orders. So he never does anything against her, but he does get very frustrated with her, because again, her defense mechanism is chatting, and his defense mechanism is stabbing. And that doesn't always go well.
Very different.
So they make it to...
No, I've got this. And he's like ready to fight. And she's like, no, I really...
She's like, sit down. I have a story about biscuits that I'm going to tell them, and then they'll go away. And then they do. And you're like, what? It's so good.
Pretty funny.
It's so good. So I want to be clear. This is a fantasy realm. This is a cozy mystery in a fantasy realm. Yeah. So magic exists in this world, but it's not extremely prevalent. Like you don't run into a magic user every day. When you do, it's kind of a big deal.
Than like I throw a fireball. I cast magic missile at the darkness. It is genuinely hysterical. Like it doesn't feel too contrived.
Yeah.
She's writing a direct sequel to Swordheart.
Okay.
Yeah, which she obviously leaves open at the end, which, yeah, they're definitely going to go on, like, a mission to take out that god.
Oh my god, yes, for sure. So there's a lot of, like, spiritual and religious drama kind of happening on the side. It's a side plot to this, like, please.
The cozy murder mystery.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a genuine spiritual upheaval happening
in this world, but
in
it
the
doesn't
background.
Matter. Yeah, but they give you tons of information. It's really fascinating. It's really well done.
I really loved her writing. Like,
it's
I just solidly.
If you want to check out any of these books, you absolutely can on our bookshop.org page, which I guess is just turning into a T. Kingfisher Stan account. We'll do our best to. We'll
bring other ones in too. I promise. I have some new ones to buy, so I will be buying some new books pretty soon. So I just need to go through Bookshop. I need to find them on Bookshop.
Again, disclaimer: we do have an affiliate partnership with Bookshop, so anything you buy through them, we do get a commission. But we chose them specifically because they support local bookstores and have raised $26 million.
Yeah, I thought that was
awesome.
So cool.
I'm so excited for them.
One of the things that it, just specifically like directly helped independent bookstores, especially during the pandemic. Like,
absolutely,
there were people.
Well, not especially. Literally, I mean, it started in 2020. So
yeah, like that's a good point. Well, I mean, it wasn't directly like they were trying to get the support, and then the pandemic happened, and they were able to, and that really helped it take off. There were definitely bookstore owners that were like, I was in an issue, I had like a flood, or I needed to have an exterminator come and replace XYZ, and I didn't think I was going to be able to do it. And then I remembered my Bookshop account. I was like, oh, let me just go check, and it was like I had $20,000 in it. Holy shit, awesome!
Yeah,
because as the creator of Bookshop mentions, they're trying to be the third best option. So if you can't get to your local bookstore, and if they don't have a digital storefront to buy from directly, like, this is a fantastic option. And even if you don't want to go through a direct bookstore, if you just go through bookshop.org without like using an affiliate, there is a pooled fund. So anybody that is a participant that also participates in the share will get a payout. So I think that's just something to just keep in mind.
Yeah, you don't even have to go use our links. Use someone else's links. Yeah. Or use no links at all. Just go to bookshop.org.
And it'll still support local bookstores.
Still support local bookstores, yes. 10 out of 10. Thank you for listening to The Mincing. I have been Annie.
I have been Kaylee. Sorry. I don't know why it's always... I feel so silly.
Introducing yourself
at the end. Yeah, I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm not Kaylee anymore. I'm Steve.
All right. Thanks, Steve. You can email us at inksingpodcast@gmail.com. You can follow us on Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram. You can listen to the podcast wherever you are currently listening to it, and wherever else you would like to, if we're being honest. You can support us. We have a Ko-fi account.
We have a Ko-fi.
You can
buy us a coffee on Ko-fi.
There. Yes, buy us a coffee. Help us out. If you like us, we like you too. And we are setting up our supporter network in there. If you would like a say in what we create, please jump in. Should we make a Discord? Should we make merch? What kind of merch? That sounds fun. Let us know. And you can find all of the links to those on our link tree. As well as the Substack, which has the transcripts lovingly translated from our dithering by Kaylee.
So for transcripts, it's not a script format, guys, just to be clear. We do try to, it's more of a paraphrase. Like, we have direct quotes in it from ourselves.
It's more of a blog format, I would say.
Exactly, yeah. So trying to keep the vibe in the content. Sometimes there are additional details. Sometimes not every word gets in just because it doesn't necessarily vibe in the written format. And also, we talk a lot. And not everything we say is useful. So.
How dare you? Everything I've ever said has been gold.
Look, I just want to be very clear. I have been very much enjoying this. Is exactly what I do in life as far as like my preferred content method of creation, like paraphrasing and running with it has been good. I love it a lot. So I'm super happy. Hopefully you guys enjoy it.
And you can find the links to all of those on our link tree, which you can find wherever you found this show. Thanks for listening.